All right, going to be doing a little beach landscape today. Sure, got everything in view. It's got a 9 by 12 linen panel here. On my palette, I'm going to have ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, Indian yellow, yellow ochre, cadmium lemon, and titanium white. And I got paint thinner and my medium off screen here. Okay, I'm starting out with some burnt sienna, just watered down with paint thinner to block in my subject. And a little thing I like to do is kind of find where I think the middle is, because I don't want to line anything up. A lot of landscapes is composition, a lot. And I feel like a lot of composition is knowing kind of what not to do. Knowing ways not to mess up your composition. So I got, halfway down is here, halfway in the middle. So I got this, the middle is probably right there. Like I wouldn't want my focal point anywhere around here. And I think my focal point is probably going to be thinking about putting some people in here, and I don't have to see till the end, but it's probably going to be kind of right where this the ocean kind of wraps around, the beach wraps around behind this tree here. So I am going to first find my horizon line. That's kind of a good thing. Always kind of try to find your horizon line when you first start out with a landscape. It's kind of the most basic, good way, simple way to start. And I try not to have my horizon line perfectly in the center of the canvas. Of course, I've seen great painters have done it, but it's for a rule of thumb. Try to make it either further down or further above halfway. And in this picture, it's definitely further down here because the sky is taking up a large portion of the canvas. So say that's about right. Okay. Now, next thing I want to do is kind of work my way forward here, is figure out where to start this second grouping of trees here in the background. And like I said, I wouldn't want to start it right here, right on the center, so try and avoid that. So I'm actually looking at this space on my reference photo. I think probably around there is where it would end. And it's, this is the horizon, like this is, the first back, the horizon. This is kind of where all these little houses in the back will sit. But this is actually going to be just a little bit in front. I'm not worrying about being extremely accurate or anything right now with, that fine-tuned thing, but I'm just being aware of it. Not this high, and I'm just kind of getting the general shape. All right. And then I can see, I'm always kind of being aware here of where I think my focal point will be, which is kind of going to be probably right in here. So I want to kind of figure out this distance to where this foreground tree is going to kind of break it in between. Probably. Say about there. This goes up. Then I'm just figuring out the basic, structure and outline. I'm just getting the placement of it. I'm not worried about drawing anything in right now. Back. You got this grass. Sometimes when I got to figure out, where to put this ocean in. A lot of times I figure out where it ends, like where this white sand ends. I'm kind of looking to see like how far from the right side, how far in. And it's definitely not the center. Like I don't want it to be directly in the center here. And it looks like in the picture it's actually almost in line with these trees. So the trees, comes down, and you got that. And so now I got this end point, and it makes it easier to kind of figure out where to bring this. Comes down like that. And I can see like the green, like this aqua green actually goes off on the right side of the canvas. Goes up probably around there, I'd say. And it converges back here. So now I kind of figured out that appropriate space. And there's a lot, other going on. Don't really need to worry about it right now, but got the surf here. So got that down, and I got kind of some darker sand area that I'm just going to indicate, just help me with construction of the composition here. Now this is a big element of the scene. If I was painting this on plein air and time was of the essence, I would try and get these clouds in as quick as I could. I almost would paint these probably before I painted anything else or even drew anything else, but it's such a strong directional tool. I just want to kind of indicate these strong clouds. And now a good tip with composition is never have anything go off the corners. Like I wouldn't want like this line go straight off in the corner. Don't ever have anything going straight off in the corner. It's kind of a composition no-no. And you can see that the angle of the clouds as you get closer to the horizon, angle is going to level out to where the cloud's back here. I'm just kind of indicating like the shadow. I'm looking for the shadows of the cloud, the shadows, the darkest parts of the clouds here. Maybe I'll kind of show the outline of the cloud here, and you got the blue sky here. So now you got this great composition of, this leading you in, takes you to the tree, brings you up, and there, so you got this zigzag. If you're looking to paint landscapes, if you really like painting landscapes and that's kind of like what you want to do, I can't stress learning composition enough. It's so much of what makes a good landscape. I didn't realize that for a long time, of how much of what makes you like landscapes is being able to do that, and being able to move things if you needed to. Like when I was kind of figuring out where all this went, it's probably not exact because I wanted to make sure that I didn't have this end directly in the center. I didn't want to have any of this fallen where I didn't want to, and I would be willing to move it if I needed to. And as far as like an underpainting or anything goes, I'm using this burnt sienna because it's an earth tone. It's also warm, so if it shows through, it's just going to give a good warmth to the painting, which is good for landscapes. Helps out a lot. This is kind of going to be all real dark, and you can kind of push this underpainting portion as much as you like. Just make sure you keep the paint thinned out with paint thinner so it dries pretty quickly and you're not going to have trouble layering over top of it. But if you want to kind of map out your values, you can. Like this tree is definitely the darkest value here. And if this helps you move on to the next stage, do it. If you don't really dig this and don't understand it really, just don't worry about it. I'm just going to show you just for the sake of the demonstration here. See, I'm just filling it in. I'm not worrying about detail or anything. I just want to kind of map out what's, darker than what. Alright, start with these clouds here. I'm going to try and act as if I was painting this on location the best I can, and also a lot of people find it helpful to start with your furthest element, which is most of the time the sky, and then work your way forward. So I'm going to mix up a purple here, knock it back a little bit with some yellow ochre. Make sure to keep this on the lighter side. The sky a lot of the times it's going to be your lightest plane. It might not be in this one because I think the sand got this white sand that almost plays by the same rules as snow. So I'm being really general here and just kind of figuring out the shape of these clouds. Still just using paint thinner. Alright, now I'm going to go grab some of this cobalt, which is warmer blue. I'm going to add a touch of the Cadmium to really lighten it up and put it down here towards the horizon. This kind of bleeds into the clouds. I always try and work dark to light, so getting those shadows in the clouds. The next would probably be the actual sky in between the holes in the clouds. So I'm going to grab some of this cobalt and a little bit of the ultramarine. A touch of my linseed oil. That seems about right. just a tad. And then, actually, I'm going to put a touch of it over on this side. Not too much. Almost something. I'll probably rework that a little bit, but the next time the sky shows up, it's not until it's down here, and the sky's going to get lighter, so it's going to be a lot lighter and warmer. So I'm going to take just the cobalt, white, tad of the Cadmium, because it's going to be a lot lighter and a lot warmer down here. You can see how much lighter it is than my previous sky mixture. Normally I'd use my cerulean blue, but I do not have any at the moment. Actually, I do have, should have put this down. I was gonna put a little phthalo, kind of use this just for the sky. It's gonna give it that bright sky look. There we go. Yeah, I should have put this color out earlier because I know I'm going to need it for the water. Add a touch of it down here. Throw a bit in these clouds. I always kind of like mixing a little bit of whatever my sky color is into the clouds, because it's just, you know, clouds are, you know, it's just air, it's just, you know, vapor, and this, some of the sky shows through, and just having that color in there, I feel like really sells it. I can always paint over it more if I need. Put in the rest of these clouds here. So the lighter side, I'm going to go back to the purple mixture. I'm going to add a little more of this. Let's actually go with a little Indian yellow, a little warmer. Getting more of a like gray. A lot lighter. Yeah, let's get some of the ochre. Still just trying to think of general shapes here. Fun thing to do is kind of, when you get to these sections where the sky is, kind of, you know, feather out some little sporadic clouds, give it a little natural touch. And now that I've gotten pretty good base for the clouds, I'm going to go in here and push some lights and darks a little more. I'm going to start out with some shadows. Lost a little bit of them, putting in the sky. See down here, it's a little too dark. It's one thing you don't want to start, you know, when you're putting these darks and you don't want to paint outside your value zone. You don't want to put in a shadow that's too dark, that doesn't fit in, you know, the value zone of the sky. Knock this back just a bit. Now, do the same thing but with some lights. I'm going to just make a value that's a little lighter, touch warmer. Now, the thing to note with clouds is, as clouds go further back in space, a lot of the yellow is going to drop out. So, like any like highlights up here that seem to be a little warmer, have some more yellow in it. Back here, it's pretty much just going to be red. a lot of time, you know, it's gonna be a pink pretty much. So I'm gonna mix up a pink. There's not much yellow in that at all. A little lighter. This is gonna be for the clouds that are way in the distance. As they get closer up, add a little more yellow to them. So I'm just paying attention to when I'm putting these highlights in, like how far back do I want it to read, and depending on how much red I'm going to put in and how much yellow I'm going to knock out of it. This is just a little too clean of a break for me, this area. I'm going to kind of break it up a bit. Put some stray clouds. I think certain parts are still a little too yellow. A little more blue here. Get some highlight up here is pretty close. Probably come in later and develop this more once I put the tree in a bit. I'm also going to cut back in with the sky. Gonna break up any unnatural looking outlines in the clouds. Still see a little darker. I feel like I can push the shadows a little more, just up in here, even simplify it a bit. So all this is the bottom of a cloud. little bit of the Indian yellow. I'm going to kind of test and see how much I can push these lights before I go a little too far. Bring a little red in there. Thing with clouds is being able to, identify and point out like where the bottom of the top is. Like this, it's definitely the bottom of the cloud. You're looking underneath it, and this is the bottom, and then up here's the top, so it's going to be catching a little more light. Like I said before, in terms of like changing things that you need to, I've definitely made this angle a lot stronger just to kind of give the composition a little more oomph. Picking up in the reference here, just a hint of it just being a little lighter. Going back in here to probably help make these trees pop. Alright. Gonna soften some edges up here that need softened. Don't want things looking too uniform. Define this cloud down here a little bit. Now I'm seeing that this is just too long of a perfectly straight line. I want to break that up a little bit. I think I need to add some more grayer clouds down here. All right, next I'm going to move to this shoreline over here. Now I'm going to start with some blue. Take some yellow ochre. Now this is far away, so I need to have this sit, you know, in the distance pretty well. And as things go further back in the distance, they get more blue. 'Cause the first thing to drop out is yellow, and then red, and then you're left with blue. But I think I'm going to touch a red. I'm not worrying about the houses of it right now. Actually, add a little bit of cobalt. Right, I might adjust that later, but I'm just going to move on to these trees right here. Now I like to start with the dark, so I'm going to mix up really dark, not really dark, but a dark purplish type color, knock down some of my yellow ochre. Now I don't want this to be too dark because it needs to sit behind this tree, so the really darks in this tree need to be darker than what's going on back here. Yeah, touch more red, but I need this to be darker than my land that's way back there, so this needs to be the lightest, and then a little darker and a little darker. So I'm just laying in some thin paint here. Got the darks now. It's just like kind of the dark accent marks. And I'm going to do the lighter side of the trees. So actually I'm going to take some of the Indian yellow. ultramarine blue. Now again, these are set further back, so I'm going to knock a little bit of the yellow out of it. A little more red. Whoops. Not mean to do that. Some white. This is going to be kind of like a mid-tone color, not the brightest highlight. And I also want to make sure this is darker than my sky value-wise. See, I'm leaving some small areas for the darks. See, I'm still using a relatively big brush. Now, certain areas of this, these trees get a little lighter, a little more orange to them. Take my Indian yellow, a little crimson. See, it's leaning a little more towards the red side with this. It's gonna keep these trees sitting far behind. Don't want to get too much yellow in them. And if you want, you can always, if you need to, go back in with your dark, your purple, kind of redefine the dark areas. Now at the bottom of this little land, there's kind of a different type of plant or bushes that a little more of a vibrant green. I think I can push the yellow in that a little more Indian yellow. Might be a little too much. I think I can get away with that. Actually, I think I can make think I can bring these trees up a little higher. They seem a little small. Just gonna bring them up a little bit. I think that's enough to move on. Like in all this, you know, you can always bounce back, and I might go back and touch in some of these trees. For now, I feel like I can't make any decisions on pushing these any one way or another until I get everything around it. But I'm going to move ahead to the water and get this water in. This is I'm going to my phthalo blue. If you have cerulean blue, you can use cerulean blue. Some of these like really vibrant colors, like this really aqua color, is just hard to get with the primaries, so I like to take a little of the phthalo blue, mix it some yellow, knock it back a tad with this Indian yellow that's got a little bit of red in it. So that's, you know, red is the complement of green, so it's going to knock this back just enough to make it natural looking color. And the shallow water here is a little lighter and a little more yellow. All right, now for this big tree, I'm going to treat it like the trees behind it, and we'll lay in the dark first. So just going to mix up a thin dark with my paint thinner and blue. Now I'm going to go to my burnt sienna now because this is closer, so it's warmer. So dip my blue, burnt sienna, and this is just the darkest darks in the tree. You can see how dark it is compared to everything else that I have on my palette. I can really make it stand, you know, in the foreground here. So this is the most inner parts of the tree where you see the darkest darks in the tree's little accents. So you don't need it everywhere. It's a little too blue for me. Hold on. Push the red. All right. Now I'm going to work on the next value, kind of a mid-tone green. Actually make it a little color. This is the shadow part. Kind of got this whole middle section shadow here. Actually pushed it a little more. Even though up here is highlight, I'm just putting this so when I lay those highlights down, there's some shadow underneath it to build off of. Lighten this up a bit. Lighten it up a bit, the lighter sections of the tree. Now I'm still thinking about like just the general structure here of the tree and light coming down and kind of catching the edge here. I think I can push the highlights in this tree just a little bit here. Add some white and a little more of the Indian yellow. So I'm going to push back into this tree with some of these cloud colors. Help redefine and shape it. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to get one with a smaller brush and get some detail. Remix my dark green color here. On the shadows here, and a little more light. Probably went a little too dark. We're bouncing back and forth from the highlights and the shadows. And you can see how much more color, like saturated the colors are in this tree than these. It's pushing those, you know, further back into the distance. Find this cloud purplish gray to help reshape this tree and throw in some sky holes. All right, now there's these kind of bushes right up in here that aren't as like warm of a green. It's green with not as much red in it. So I'm going to start like I did the other one and start with the shadow, darks. The light side here. And bring down the trees in the back down. Fill this gap. Mix up this light purple that I used for the dark in the trees in the back. So I see there's some areas go back into. Move to grass here, right up in here. It's actually pretty warm at the base of the grass, so I'm gonna, again, work dark to light, find the dark. Establish that first. Then go from there. Now this is a very, very yellow green. I'm actually just going to morph this pile of green into the right one. See how that's looking at. Probably push a little lighter. Because right now I'm looking at it compared to the tree, making sure I got it in the right value. So just kind of, using that as a comparison. Now, the thing about edges is that this is grass, you know, and so you can kind of see in the photo reference the, you know, it's kind of like a soft edge because you got all these little blades of grass, but we're not going to go in and paint all these blades of grass, but I'm going to just kind of use my finger and look at a few times I actually blend paint and just kind of soften the edge, give the illusion of the grass, and because this grass isn't like a hard, sturdy shape. You know, it's all these different blades blowing in the wind. There are certain sections in here that are a little greener. I'm going to pop in using like more of a green to a little variety. All right, I'm going to jump to here, and this color is, you know, squinting my eyes, kind of a purple. Add some more white here. So I'm going to mix up a really light purple. Because it's, you know, you're getting this purple because you're getting reflection from the sky. And again, I'm just squinting down and not worrying too much about detail right now, and just big shape and where this is going to be. It does blend into the ocean, the green ocean here, so I'll make sure to do that. You know, I think this is a little too yellow. Just sticking out too much to me. I'm going to knock it back with yellow's complement purple. And it's just too much. A little more purple and a little more green. Alright, now I'm noticing that kind of what just stands out to me right now is back here. I feel like it's sitting more in the distance, so I'm just going to get straight blue, ultramarine blue. add some white to it. Just make it cooler of a color. Also, this right here is bothering me. It's way too. Soften that. All right. Let's move up here and let's get this sand color here. A lot of times what I do is kind of find whatever color on my palette that I got that's closest to it and kind of morph it into what I need. A little lighter. That's pretty close. A little more red. All right, now I'm going to put something in for this sand here. It's pretty bright. Oops. Just going to lighten my sand color up here. There are certain darker aspects of it, so I want to get those in first. Right here. I don't want this sand to be completely white, so I put some Indian yellow in it to give a little bit of warmth to it and the feeling that the sun is, beating down on it. Not worrying about every little divot in the sand. This is kind of a hill coming down, so I'm going to change my brush strokes and kind of indicate this slope here. Now up in this grass, this is where you can kind of shape areas where the sand goes, kind of steps back into certain areas of the grass. Because you wouldn't want this just to be a perfectly straight line, you want to break it up. Now there's these little bits of seaweed, so I'm going to mix up a darker reddish color here, and really like what kind of defines this. And I don't like what I just did there, because I made these two like just way too similar. Change that up there. This is just adding a little variety to the sand. Kind of want to play up this part here, because this might end up being my focal point if I don't put people in this. I have this highlight on the edge of this bush. Kind of want this vanishing point around the bend. Draw a little more attention to it. Now this darker sand color, kind of reshape it going into this purple, a little more variety. I got a dark color here. Put in indication of the trunk of this tree. I want to kind of revisit up here in these trees a little bit. And before I move on, this sand, I want to put the sand on the shore in this background and add just a touch of red, because it's going to lose the yellow. Making it this pink will help it sit back there. I really want to draw people's eye to go back there. Now these houses that are way back there, get some white, knock it back a little bit, purple from the sky. I think I can get away with making a little bit of a green here. This is like the highlights on the trees back there. It's so desaturated. I feel like this horizon line's not straight enough. Get into the whites on a little bit of the breaking water here. Just add a touch of blue. Go with straight white. Now there's these rooftops way in the back here that are fun to put in, these kind of Spanish style red clay type roofs. Now that I've gotten the painting working on all the different parts of it, I can start making decisions on things that I'd like to alter or push. And first things that pops out to me is the clouds, and I think I can push highlights in certain areas. I don't like it getting pushed into here. Kind of bring it in for, if you come down, lead you to the tree. I'm also gonna remix this shadow purple. I think you could have more of it down here. As further you get back, the clouds blend into the sky. Add some stray clouds here and there. I might be able to push some highlights in the sand a little bit. Sand's always tricky. think put a little boat docked on shore right there. Push the highlights a little bit. Indication of some seashells here. Right. Call that one done. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have fun painting.